How you gonna do it if you really don't wanna dance? By standing on the wall. Get your back up off the wall. 'Cause I heard all the people saying, get down on it. Come on and get down on it. If you really want it, get down on it.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth.
He's sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
I don't have any concerns, and that's from personal interactions.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever. Not a close second.
Alert, sound.
I mean, the Republicans are like good at distractions.
I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And if the Democrats were honest, they'd admit President Biden's mental capacity is declining. 6 in 10 Americans don't have confidence in Joe Biden's mental capacity.
Then you have the liberal media told bad things about me and members of the Oversight Committee because we have the audacity to investigate.
Giving us their drive-by diagnoses of the President of the United States.
Congressman, what you are suggesting is that I omit portions of my reasoning and explanation to the Attorney General for political reasons.
Democrats get into a frenzy.
Do you think people close to President Biden are being honest about his mental state?
And these slip-ups kind of happen.
I mean, there should be no concern.
So I don't really care if he was off for 90 minutes and didn't put on like people wanted him to put on.
I saw no more in his declination than I've seen in anybody else.
Sharper than anyone.
Oh, hey, it's Asher, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know, I think there might be something wrong with your air conditioner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to be running a lot, even when it's kind of cool outside.
Oh, no, my partner runs a little hot. So.
Not as hot as our planet. Sorry, I don't mean to be that guy. It's just, we're all in this together.
Yeah, I drive a Prius, so...
And that's a nice little gesture. My car runs on reclaimed cooking oil. I have some literature if you want it.
That's okay, save the paper.
I haven't printed anything since 2004. I was going to email you.
On your power-hungry computer?
My entire house is solar-powered. I sell energy back to the grid and use that money to save polar bears.
I'm an environmental lawyer, so, I'm pretty green.
So is your lawn. I went drought-tolerant. Succulents, indigenous plants, rock garden.
My other daddy says your yard looks like a litter box.
She's a cute kid. I remember when she was in disposable diapers.
That's too funny.
They're sick.
What's that?
They're sick.
And you want to know what? They try to outdo one another when it comes to all that stuff. So it's like it's totally spot on. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rostinello at the front line with Joe and Joe. Once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. A little technical difficulties on Thursday, but nonetheless, we show up every week. We want to have our conversations. We'd ask you to help us out, get us out to a wider audience. So if you're watching this, wherever you're watching this, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. The thing is this, I'm so encouraged that at some point, if I'm still alive over the next 20 years, what we know is the media is going to be completely dead. It's going to not exist anymore. Media will exist, not the way it does now. When you look, and there's other clips we're going to show too as we go forward tonight. We got a lot of good clips for you. And we're going to talk particularly about how Trump, Mr. Stupid, dumb, fascist, all these things that they want to call him, how he just picks up. We're pretty prescient because we saw these things coming a long time ago. We say, what do the Democrats have a problem with him about? He's taking their issues away from them. Tariffs is a really big one. Republicans have been historically against tariffs. Democrats have been for tariffs. Trump completely took that issue away from them. We're going to talk about how he took away the way pharmaceuticals are priced from them, and we'll get into that a little bit. But let's stay on the media because I want your comment. I think media basically is already in effect on life support, okay? And when you look at that clip, when you look at how they shilled for Biden, and I'm sorry, Fox News does not shill for Donald Trump. Certain individuals do, like Sean Hannity and others, okay? But on the whole, Fox News is pretty balanced. I haven't watched it in a while because I'm still not over them and what they did to Trump in 2020. But do you see the level to which they lie, Joe? And they wonder why people like us, the only thing they can resort to is calling us names because we don't want to watch them. I don't want to watch it. I want to get all my news from social media, which is what I do. Any of the headlines, as we were talking before we came on, I got the Bloomberg news on Friday. I got that from social media or the Moody's credit rating downgrade Okay, it came after the market closed on Friday. I got that from social media. I don't get anything from the news, nothing. And I think there's just going to be slow deaths with them as far as the way the media operates. They're already comatose. And over the next 10 years, I think with the growth of AI and social media and everything else, I think they're irrelevant. Are we really supposed to listen to Joe Scarborough talk about this is the best version of Biden ever?
Joe, that was one of the saddest displays in American history. Let's be honest with you. The man was wandering off into the jungle in Brazil after a press conference. He was saying, reading the teleprompter, pause.
Yeah.
I mean, it was beyond understanding. You can criticize Donald Trump all you want. Some things I'll agree with you. Sometimes he takes things too far. Sometimes he might tweet something out on his Truth Social, maybe that he shouldn't say. I get it. We can agree there. What we saw with Joe Biden was so outrageous, and they all carried water for him, and they lied directly to the American people's face. No one, absolutely no one who's objective, Democrat or Republican, gives them any credibility whatsoever. How can you? And you mentioned that social media. I'll never forget, I saw an interview with Steve Ballmer, the ex-CEO of Microsoft. Hardly a conservative. Lives in Seattle, Washington. Currently, he owns a basketball team.
The Seattle Supersonics.
Well, I think it's the LA. It's the Clippers.
Okay.
The Clippers.
Yeah. He owns a basketball team.
Well, anyway, here's a guy, hardly conservative, in an interview. They ask him, where do you get the news? He says, straight, and it was on MSNBC. He just goes, X. He goes, I listen to a wide variety of news, but I get it from X.
Right.
And their face dropped. Absolutely, positively, they are in a death spiral. They're in a death spiral because they lost credibility. I'll be truthful with you. All the mainstreams like CBS, ABC, why anyone would tune into that outside of the weather? You have got to be crazy, or sports news. You have got to be crazy.
Right. I told you. I mean, everybody out there knows, I follow the markets every day, right? I want to see what's going on with the tariffs and how the market reacts, because the market tells a story. It tells a story because, listen, Joe, how many times have you said money moves the dial? Okay. If the market has come back from like Trump announced the tariffs on April 2nd, market goes down and the market came all the way back. The market's telling you that they like the moves that he's made, or else it wouldn't be back. The NASDAQ, let's say, wouldn't be back at 19,000, but it was before Friday's credit rating downgrade, which is purely political. We'll see how that shakes out this week. But my larger point, why do I bring it up? All the news that I was looking for, recently because of tariffs, and I'm going to do this moving forward because it's kind of, something clicked in my head. This is how I do. I follow certain journalists that I know tell the truth who are on X. So in my case, when it comes to financial news, I follow Charlie Gasparino. Okay. Been following him for years, been reading his articles in the New York Post. He's a fair and objective guy, and he's just going to report it. I follow Dan Ives. Dan Ives, I think, has a little bit of a axe to grind with Elon Musk. But other than that, when it comes to technology analysis and things like that, he's a fair guy. When it comes to anything that needs to be covered, anything that we need to know as American citizens, I find the person who I rely on to be objective, and that's the person I follow on X. And then I make sure that I see all their posts as they go along so that I could keep up on the news. Give me a final comment, Joe.
Ultimately, like you said, the news has evolved. One can't say where it's going to go. What I will say is this. Anyone who's credible does not watch mainstream media. They don't. Anybody who really is objective does not watch mainstream media. Now, if you drink the Kool-Aid, you'll watch it. And that includes Fox. I don't watch Fox. To be honest with you, it's regurgitated talking points. There's no analysis. There's no connecting of the dots. And frankly, any talking head can do that. Really, you don't have to be a thinking person. You have to basically have an ideology that you hold tight to, and you have to be able to read a teleprompter, and you have to be able to buy a nice tie. Outside of that, That's all it is. It's
Right, no, I
no
agree.
connecting of the dots. There's no thinking involved. And then the rest of them are just, frankly, I hate the American people. That's all that the rest of the news is. I hate the American people and I support the oligarchs because basically the system works for me. It doesn't work for you. Too bad for you and good for me. So ultimately, the news is dead. People should look to alternative sources. And the good news is there are plenty of them. Plenty of very smart people that if you dial into, you could get your finger on the pulse of geopolitical news, of domestic news, of financial news. So many people have podcasts. Smart people. So many people give you insight that Sean Hannity or Rachel Maddow never will because they're owned by advertising. And that's what people should look into.
Well, let me tell you something. There's a lot of owning of the media and owning of our politicians. The pharmaceutical industry obviously owns a lot of them, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But we're going to stay on the media for a second because once in a while you find an honest voice. But yeah, Trump's very good at stealing issues from the left. I think it's one of the reasons why they hate him. But here's a voice. Here's a bit of honesty, Joe Resinello, and for all you good people watching us out the front line with Joe and Joe, here's a good bit of honesty from a source you wouldn't expect to find it.
All right. Senator Chuck Schumer, I know you got to go. I appreciate your time today. We'll see you soon, I hope. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. And our panel joins us now. CNN political commentator Jonah Goldberg, the host of the Chuck Toddcast, Chuck Todd, Democratic strategist Paul Begala, Republican pollster Kristen Soltis Anderson, both CNN political commentators. Chuck Todd, go.
He is among the people that are responsible for this. The leaders of the Democratic Party, the staff of the White House. And I have to say, I find everybody now talking to these authors, get out of here. Go home. You're part of the problem. Now you tell us? So I find, the reason why the Democratic Party has less credibility today. Here's an unpopular president, and the Democratic Party has a worse rating than the Republican Party with this catastrophic governance that we've seen over the last 120 days. And yet, why is the Democratic Party in worse shape? Because of this distrust, because of this, frankly, what the public feels as if the party leadership let them down and let this happen. He's as responsible as anybody else. He was a leader in the party. He could have said something sooner.
And in context, what he's talking about is now they're all coming out and admitting that Biden was in cognitive decline. And that's what Chuck Todd is talking about. And you go back to the first clip we played earlier in the episode here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, you see one after the other, media and Democrat Party operatives, Clyburn, I was about to call her a name, Joe. I won't call her a name. That woman, Jasmine Crockett, okay? And all these people, Biden show, Joe Scarborough, this is the best. It's nauseating, Joe Resinello. Scarborough actually said this is the best version of Joe Biden I've ever seen. First of all, there was never, ever really a good version of Joe Biden.
I would agree with that.
And he's been in the Senate as long as you and I have been alive. Or he was in the Senate as long as you and I were alive. So it's nauseating, and Chuck Todd's calling it out.
Well, a little late, Chuck, because you were part of it too.
That's right. He was part of it too.
You were part of it too. So ultimately, like I said, that's why they have no credibility. None whatsoever. And it's going to take a long time for them to win that back. I'm going to tell you that right now. The Democratic Party is going to go extinct if it does not change. I'm going to tell you that right now. I want everyone who's listening to Google parties that no longer exist in America. There are a number of them. And I will tell you this, the people on the 15% all the way to the right and the people on the 15% all the way to the left do not determine the president. It's the 70% in the middle, and they lost them. Regular people who are not super political, who are not like watching the news constantly, who don't live and die by party ideology, the regular person who maybe says, for the most part, I vote for the Democrats, for the most part, I vote for the Republicans, they determine the president, and they no longer trust the Democratic Party.
Well, let me ask you a question. Would you? If you have
any person who has brains.
I'm a rank and file. Let's say I'm a rank and file Democrat, right? and it's 2024, and I know that the president who I voted for, Joe Biden, again, assuming that I was a Democrat, I'm just a regular guy, I could see with my eyes. I don't need you to interpret it. I don't need Joe Scarborough to interpret it or Jasmine Crockett. I could see with my eyes this man has a problem and cannot effectively run the country. And then I see a guy like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who, if I'm a Democrat, I say, well, he's a fair-minded guy. Give me a chance. Let's have a primary. Let's get to the primaries. And what does my party do? My party takes away my voice, and they put in a person who can't even string a sentence together. Biden couldn't do it because he was mentally incapable, cognitively incapable of stringing a sentence together. Kamala Harris couldn't do it because she's just not a smart woman. See, Joe, I'm not calling people names anymore. I was about to use a different.
She had no political gifts.
Nothing whatsoever. But that's them telling the Democrats, you'll just vote for who we tell you, rather than say, why did you? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be president of the United States.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
I don't think Trump would have gotten all the states, and amongst the 7 swing states, I think he still would have eked out a win. Okay, because I think he again, like we're talking about today, we'll be talking about how he steals things from Democrats. So he stole the tax on tips. He stole no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, things that Democrats you would think are in favor of. He says, we're going to do that. And he wins Nevada because Nevada is a hospitality state because of Vegas and Reno and all that. Okay, he steals Nevada. And I think some of the other states would have gone also, like Michigan would have gone. But here's the thing. He would have squeaked out a victory against RFK Jr., but the Democrats would still be relevant. But they couldn't even do that for their own party and give them a chance to vote for somebody. They just install her as the leader of the party. The Democrats don't get a chance to vote in a primary. And now they look like idiots. And I say, you know what? I should go and pray a novena of gratitude to Jesus Christ, okay, that they look like idiots. Because then they lose more and more and more and more power, which ultimately that's what we want anyway, because they are an insane person's party. They are the party.
They have to win back the working man.
They ain't going to do it.
They don't want to do it because they're backing AOC and Bernie Sanders. That is the radical 15% to the left. You're not going to win with them. You're not going to win. And people like Chuck Todd, voices are starting to bubble up. They have to reform themselves. We talked about this last week, from within, or they are going to disappear. They're going to disappear. I'm telling you this because it's very hard to pull off what they pulled off with Joe Biden the first time. One, you had a crisis. As a result, they changed election laws. We went from 30% voting from home to 70%, and that hasn't changed, by the way, and I think that's a big mistake on Trump's part. That should absolutely change. But that's a conversation for another day. They absolutely, if you ask me, cannot keep the quote-unquote secrets in the House anymore because of X. Elon Musk purchased X, and he opened it up. As a result of that, it's very hard to keep from the American people the truth. Yes, the truth. And it's not just people like Joe and I, who in many respects are pundits and we're expressing our opinions, but there are experts on X, college professors, economists, geopolitical analysis. Many of those people absolutely and positively point in a different direction than the oligarchs, particularly on the Ukraine. If you listen to social media, and then people like Jeffrey Sachs, people like generals, ex-generals, I'm just naming a couple people, they were speaking a complete and utter different language than ABC News, than CBS, than for a while. And guess what was proved to be correct? They were.
Right.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
You were absolutely again lied to, the American people. Again. At the cost of your tax dollars. So how anyone trusts these people, and frankly, like I said, I don't trust either party, to be truthful with you. I'm skeptical of them both. But I will tell you this, the Democratic Party has to basically beat back the agenda that they have embraced, and they have to banish it to the wilderness for their own survival.
Well, here's the
Because they're
thing.
not going to be around if they don't.
Evidence that they're not going to do that is right here, Joe.
Fetterman has been reaching across the aisle too much for them. The senator crushes Hamas in campus protests, which, as we all know, is a pet project of the radical left. He met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, right? That's a huge sin, right? After Trump won the election. And he worked with Republicans on passing the Laken-Riley Act and voted for 10 of Trump's cabinet picks. And now the senator is saying that Trump has keyed in correctly on the most important concern in our country, helping the majority do better when it comes to workers and economic benefits. The Democrats have had it since all of these things, hence the hit piece. Now, Democrats, this is why you lost. You can't cancel everyone who doesn't hate the right and play by your stilted rules of purity. But the bigger mistake here is that they're targeting a Democrat who has it right. Fetterman is trying to work on the issue that is the key to winning the midterms and to the long-term success of our country, addressing the yawning gap between the many who struggle and the outrageously wealthy few.
He gets it, dude. That couldn't have been said better.
Right. And these are Democrats.
Joe, you took
Chris
the words out of
Cuomo
my
is
mouth.
not a Republican. We, as Catholic men, he calls himself a Catholic man, I believe. He was baptized Catholic, okay? We, as Catholic men, we don't agree with Chris Cuomo, okay, on a number of things. But where the right is, where Trump is pulling the Republican Party, where he should, is to do what Fetterman is standing up for, and what Chris Cuomo is highlighting, which is we have, and the Republicans, the knee-jerk, what I call Chamber of Commerce, Christian, evangelical, conservative Christians who bow at the altar of the free market and say, well, if a guy makes $1 billion a year, God bless him. God bless him is right. But at the end of the day, if his workers can't pay their bills, I got a problem with that. That's Catholic social teaching. That's Catholic social teaching. That's just sound morality. It's good economics. I was trying to teach my son. I'm going to throw it over to you. I was trying to teach my son something the other day. Okay. And I don't have like, what do you call rose-colored glasses when it comes to looking at, let's say, some people in history, and I don't know the full story of Henry Ford, but what I do know is this. He was smart enough to know, watching all the workers build his cars, he said, none of them can afford the thing that they're actually building. And what did he do over 100 years ago? He doubled their salary. He created the middle class. He created customers for himself because he knew if I double everybody wants to be mobile. Everybody's going to want to own a car. If I double their salary, you know what these guys are going to be able to do? They're going to be able to buy my car. I make money. They make more money. And that was the model that created the middle class in America. Because if you look when the middle class was the strongest, it was between then and probably right up to the end of the 1950s. That's when, and maybe including part of the 60s. That's when the middle class was strongest in America.
Brilliant.
That's smart business. And the reason why Fetterman could look at that and Chris Cuomo could look at that is because that works. When everybody's participating in the economy, Trump knows that too, and he's trying to smash the old Republican way of looking at things, which is it's all profits, it's all growth, it's all bottom line, and say, all right, well, what about the workers? All right, and Fetterman gets it, and the Democrat Party are just like you always say, they're the party of the oligarchs. They are so ideologically entrenched that they are not going to give in on everything, even issues, and we'll talk about it in the next segment, even issues that used to belong to them, they're losing those, particularly the working class. Chris Cuomo and John Fetterman both get it, Joe.
Joe, people could say you and I are biased. What we just highlighted, you just highlighted, is coming out of Chris Cuomo's mouth. People have to get that through their head. This is a tried and true Democrat. He's actually trying to help you, and they're not interested. They're not interested in the help. Do you think that AOC, who many people right now are saying she is the leader of that party, I have heard people with a straight face talk about her running for president.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that is an absurd idea. That is so absurd. If I was a Democrat, I would be appalled. Horrible. And Chris Cuomo is laying it out for you. And they want none of it. If Barack Obama ran on the policies that he ran on when he first won, the Democratic Party would want nothing to do with him.
He was against gay marriage when he ran the first time, Obama. Was he not?
Well,
No,
yes, he was also, dude, had a very similar, I hate to say it, policy on immigration as Trump.
Right.
He talked about, and he deported more people than people admit. Look that one up on the internet to see how many people Barack Obama actually deported from the country. So, I mean, they're off the rails. Their ideas do not resonate with the common person, the regular working person from Hawaii to Maine. They don't, frankly, it doesn't work for someone who doesn't live inside some academic bubble in their head and or someone who's uber rich, who's above it all. It doesn't work. It's very easy for someone who's living in that wealthy bubble to have these particular ideas, none of which affect their children or their household. By the way, it's very easy to sit at your kitchen table and basically have these crazy ideas when you don't have kids, when you make a lot of money, when you live in cities, or frankly, you teach at a university and you don't have kids. Very easy to have some of these ideas. Drive a truck for UPS, be a nurse, be a cop, be a school teacher. Pick any state in America. Could be the bluest state of them all. Illinois, Connecticut, California. Talk to those people. Talk to the people who have to ride the New York subway system. Talk to people who are terrified to walk the streets of Chicago.
But the Democrats don't care about them. They
Bingo, Joe. Bingo. You nailed it right on the head. People have
Look
to
at when they're
figure that
burning
out.
down cities, they shoot each other in Chicago left and right. And when somebody brings it up, they say, you're just being racist. No, how about I'm concerned with the fact that young black men are shooting other black men, and I don't want that to happen. How about that? I'm showing some concern, and you're somehow blaming the system or blaming the white man or whatever nonsense you want to come up with because you're not rooted in reality. And the reality is that the American people on the whole are not doing so well. They're living paycheck to paycheck.
That, Joe, that is an understatement, to be truthful with you. And I'll tell you this, the reality of the middle class disappearing is happening. If you look at the cost, again, let's look at metrics that matter. College, look at the average college, the cost, and look at the average salary of those kids coming out of those colleges and the debt that they're carrying. I'm not talking about going to an elite college. There will always be those people. There will always be those colleges, and those people will always make money in any setting. I'm talking about average people who go to the average state school or frankly go to a normal, say, quote unquote, private school, like where I went, University of Scranton, or where you went at Seton Hall. Look at the cost and look at the jobs that those kids are getting. Is it worth it? Look at the price of homes. The price of homes, the spike that went up during the Biden administration. Average homes costing $600,000.
Right.
How does a normal person that's not a professional afford such a home? How?
Right.
Let's be honest. The middle class is disappearing right before our eyes.
And Trump's at least trying to do something about it.
He may fail. He may succeed. The jury's out, but he's at least trying. The rest is all lip service.
Well,
Look
Joe,
at the metrics.
if what you talk about the oligarchs, all right, and then we're going to move forward. If what you talk about the oligarchs is true, all right, the oligarchs control, I would say, most of the Democrat Party and a very good portion of the Republican Party. Perhaps we're in for a political realignment, and MAGA is going to become the new party. Here's going to be the question we won't answer today. where, okay, now you're going to have a party that uses reasonable means to make the lives of Americans, working Americans, middle-class Americans better, financially speaking. And then the question is going to be, what are we going to do about the social issues? I don't think transgenderism is going to fly because 90% of Americans think it's all BS, and they're right about that. I think all that stuff is going to go by the wayside. But we're still going to have to put up with IVF, and somehow, some way, that new party, if I'm right, is going to come to some sort of an accommodation on abortion. We're not going to be happy about that. Okay. I wish a country would get its head out of its butt when it comes to that. And that party is going to be around for a long time, because then that precious right to kill your baby in the womb is still going to be protected, at least to a certain degree. All right. A lot of the stuff they consider insane, like transgenderism, will go by the wayside. And you'll have a party that's going to be focused more on America, more on our workers. There's going to be long-term tariffs, okay, so that we make money from tariffs again. And that's going to be the status quo. And let's see what happens. I mean, it is a possibility. You're joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. We got a couple people in the chat room. Because it was an off day, we normally go, and I think it was, I forgot who asked. Zach asked, hey, Zach. Zach asked, is this a new time? Just for today, Zach, normally it's Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time, except for when something happens, but then we'll go on over the weekend. And like you guys did, you find us. Cara Bene's with us today, and Antonella, Stephen, Amber. Thanks, you guys, for showing up. Try to share this video. We did really well. Last week's video on X got around 27,000 views, which is really, really good for Joe and I. We really want to focus on X. We'd like to make our presence known on X, even though we are on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. We want to build up on X. We think that that's going to be the platform that Joe and Joe need to grow on for all the media that we try to get involved with. So now here's the thing. We're talking about the Democrats, what they used to try to do. They rail against big business. They rail against Wall Street fat cats. They rail against the pharmaceutical industry. Okay? So Trump just stole another one from them, Joe.
I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up, and he said, President, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. Said, President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88, and in New York I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on?
Now, he tried to do something about this in his first term, obviously never really followed through on it. I don't know all the reasons why. I'm not going to pretend. But the power that the pharmaceutical industries have, alongside the oligarchs who do this, see, what they do is, in a nutshell, in regards to all these things, tariffs, everything else, they take from us. And when I mean from us, they're not taking from the rich people in America, Joe, because as you always say, they're rich. What's an extra few $1 million to somebody who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars? They don't care as long as the system stays in place, so they continue to enrich themselves. They always take from us. They take our personal income tax because they don't impose the tariffs. So China could flood our markets with cheap goods, but our goods don't make it to China because they impose tariffs. Same with all these countries. That's why Trump did this with the tariffs. Same with the pharmaceuticals. That's exactly right. What his friend told Donald Trump. You go, I guess it's Ozempic. You go there. In Ozempic, you could spend $88. You get Ozempic in London for $88, and here you're spending $1,300. And that's by design, because the oligarchs with the pharmaceutical industry, they take more from us, they charge us more, and they charge people overseas significantly less. Why? Because it's a constant attack on trying to bring down America. So what is Trump saying that's so horrible here is, no, everybody pays the same. If you're a pharmaceutical company and you make Ozempic, use Ozempic for an example, you make Ozempic, whatever you're charging in London, that's what you're going to charge Americans. Pure and simple. Whatever you're charging in Zimbabwe, that's what you're going to charge Americans. Why is this a radically bad, fascistic, tyrannical, every racist, homophobic, misogynistic idea, because that's all they do is call us that. Why is this all these things? And this is such a bad idea when it's just a matter of simple fairness. The price of the drug is the price of the drug. And it doesn't matter if you live in Russia or you live in Alaska. The price of the drug is the same. What's wrong with that, Joe?
Well,
and I want your comment. And I want your comment on how he stole this from the Democrat Party.
I'll tell you what's wrong with it, because the people who are making money aren't going to make as much money. That's what's wrong with it. It has nothing to do with you. Just like this last election had nothing to do with you. You're going to tell me that the pharmaceutical companies, how they get away with this, if we took away the amount of money that they give to both parties. Look at the ads that are going on both Fox News and MSNBC. All the ads. You think they're paying? How do you think they're paying for that? Because they charge you. Because they give money to politicians. Both sides. Think about how much money Pfizer made as a result of Joe Biden's decision to force people to take a shot that basically went against everything they sold it to you for. I mean, think about all the promises. It was the silver bullet. It was going to stop the spread of COVID, the masks and all this other stuff. All of it turned out to be untrue.
Right.
All of it turned out to be untrue. It was the largest transfer of wealth in the history of America. Wrap your arms around that.
I think in the history of the world.
Okay, fair enough. That was done to us by our government. So, of course, the pharmaceutical companies are going to call Trump names and everybody else. That has nothing to do with the issue. The issue is this. They don't want to give up money. They don't care about you. And frankly, our politicians on both sides of the aisle have betrayed us. People have to get that through their head. These people who say they serve us have betrayed us. And people have to start seeing it. Some are. They have to see it clearer. Joe, I will never trust this country as long as I live as a result of what I have seen in the last 10 years. I will never, ever trust this country as long as I am breathing. The lawfare. You don't have to like Donald Trump to be disgusted by what you saw. You don't have to like, frankly, what we saw during the COVID era, how they robbed and ruined small businesses in the name of this, that, and the other thing, picking winners and losers, how they kept kids out of schools. I will never trust the United States government again as long as I'm alive. And as far as stealing this issue, Donald Trump, for those who aren't drinking the Kool-Aid, has become the man of the people that the Democratic Party has touted to be for decades. The party of the worker, the average worker. And don't take my word for it. Talk to a truck driver. Do you talk to truck drivers? Do you talk to anybody who's outside of your little circle? Do you talk to anybody who's outside of your echo chamber? Talk to your neighbor who frankly is a construction worker. Talk to the guy who's a retired cop. They're all for Trump. These are regular people who pay bills, not people who are partners at E&Y or partners at advertising firms or have advanced degrees who work in think tanks in Washington, D.C. They're all for Trump.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, and to be honest with you, Joe, in our lifetime, probably since Teddy Roosevelt, that's way before our lifetime, America has not, like him or not, you have to give him credit. He has transformed the political landscape of the United States of America. You don't have to like him to come to that conclusion.
Right.
It's obvious if you talk to people. Talk to people who are outside of your circle, and you will be amazed at the people who voted for this man. Well, tried and true Democrats have switched parties.
Let me give you an example.
Please.
Let me give you an example. Think of it this way. let's say you take a cocktail waitress at a hotel and casino in Vegas. Okay, let's say the MGM Grand, and she's, let's say, pro-choice. She's not crazy, let's say, like Planned Parenthood, but let's say she believes in a quote-unquote woman's right to choose. She works for tips, primarily for tips, okay? Maybe she's got a couple sons in the public school, all right? She's not woke, okay? But she votes Democrat because she feels like they're on their side. And she has to have health benefits, right? Because she's got herself and her kids. So she needs health benefits. And you got Trump coming along telling her, well, and Trump, let's be clear. Trump could say all he wants, but the fact is, okay, Roe versus Wade was overturned, but most states in America, you could get an abortion. We're not happy about that, but that's the truth, okay? She's got no concerns here. She's not woke, so she doesn't want her kids learning about all the rainbow crap in the public schools, all right? So destroying the Department of Education, she doesn't mind that, okay? She's trying to do something for workers, or Trump's trying to do something for workers, to build up workers, right? That would make her more money working in, let's say, a casino as a cocktail waitress. More people would go to the casino, let's say, and use that and gamble, okay, and she'll make more money. And then he turns around and he says, oh, and by the way, if you're receiving tips as your income, you're not going to have to pay any income tax on that anymore, okay? And that's would be the template. And one other thing, only because it's personal to me, because my buddy who I work with has diabetes, and his wife just transitioned out of her job to another job. So temporarily she's without benefits, and her benefits were good. Just like I get my benefits through my wife because my company sucks. All right. The benefits stink and they're way too expensive. Okay. He's got diabetes. All right. Now, he's not a fist in the air Trump guy, but he voted for Trump. All right. He pays through the nose for diabetes medication. What if in the case of the waitress I just gave you, one of her sons had a chronic illness where it was a recurring cost for some of these drugs? And quite frankly, the cost is very high because of what Donald Trump just pointed out, because the same drug overseas costs 80% less, but she's got to pay 80% more because it's because of the way they do things. All right. Who do you think this woman is going to vote for? The next iteration of Donald Trump, let's say J.D. Vance, who espouses the same things, or the next iteration of Kamala Harris, which would be AOC? Who is that woman who would be, we consider, a traditional Democrat? Who is she going to vote for? Do they really think that she's going to vote for them? I don't see it. What do you think?
Well, here's the problem. Well, it's a problem, and then there's the solution. They will lie. They will lie. But the solution is X. See, Elon Musk wrecked the oligarchs. He wrecked them, Joe, in a way that to this day, just like Hillary Clinton, when she walks her dog in Chappaqua, has a tick in her face when she thinks of Donald Trump. She has a tick because of that. The oligarchs, when they think of what Elon Musk did by buying X and opening that platform up, they twitch. And that is the solution, if you ask me, as long as people are informed. That is the key to all of it. Because no one's buying what they're selling when people know what it is. And frankly, for far too long, the networks, all of them, filter information to the people. They're going to colleges where their heads are pumped full of garbage. Kids that are raised in good homes go to these colleges and they come home crazy, thinking crazy things. How do you think your parents afforded the college that they sent you to? By embracing these moronic ideas that absolutely, positively cannot result in a country to flourish, nor can a family function if they embrace such ideas. How do you think they sent you to college? Yet they come home and they embrace these ideas only to destroy themselves. This is what we're up against. However, there is hope because social media is now informing people. And that is what the oligarchs can't stand. And that is why, Joe, when they lie, their lies will get debunked. When they try to filter those ideas through their ridiculous debates that the networks give the questions to certain people and don't and biased questioning and all the rest of the nonsense that's gone on for decades. I don't know why anyone participates in this bull crap.
Right.
That is over. And they're up against the wall. And Joe, I'm going to tell you right now, to your point, I don't know what they're going to do. I hope it's a new beginning. I hope it's a new era for the American people. Because if it isn't, the middle class is going to disappear. And I have seen societies like that. I have traveled through South America 3 years in a row. I've traveled extensively through South America. I know what that looks like. And I'm going to tell you right now, you don't want that to happen in this country.
Right.
I'm going to tell you that right now. That means if you're a milkman, you're a milk. If your father was a milkman, you're a milkman. There is no take a loan to go to college.
Right.
There is none of that. That get that out of your head. That's not even a thought.
Mm-hmm. And it was funny you mentioned South America because Venezuela immediately comes to mind. I think I mentioned to the people here at the front line with Joe and you before, my paternal grandfather, Gerard, he left southern Italy and he went to Newark. They came in through Ellis Island. I've actually seen the registry with him in there, him and my grandmother. And so he came to Ellis Island and they went to Newark, New Jersey. His brother, my Uncle Vincent, who I never met, he went to Caracas, all right, and with nothing, just a shirt on his back, all right, no money, looking to work. He started working, and in Caracas, which is a very, as far as natural resources is concerned in Venezuela, obviously oil, they have the largest oil reserves in the world. He went into started a textile business, made millions, okay? They wrecked it. My uncle, his kids who are older than me, and their kids who are probably a little bit younger than me, they're all out. They left. They left when Chavez got supposedly elected. They left. There's no industry in Venezuela. Everything there's no middle class in Venezuela. They got out of there. They were smart enough to say, you know what? We have money. They went to Florida. They have property in Italy. And you know what? And that's how they lived their lives. Now, they're wealthy, but the people that remained there that were working, let's say, for my uncle, or remember with Coca-Cola? Remember that famous clip when Chavez basically said, we own Coca-Cola now? And they had all the pallets of Coca-Cola on the loading dock. In other words, there's no middle class in Venezuela. It was deliberately wrecked by the oligarchs in an oil-rich country to do just that. Like you always say on this show, they are not out to hurt the rich. The rich are they are the rich. I wish people would understand that. When they're trying to sell you a bill of goods through their media lackeys, I want to play a couple of clips for you from two short clips. But look what they did to Venezuela. When you mentioned South America, it's the first thing that came to mind. There is no middle class in Venezuela. Venezuela is their model. That's the oligarch's model. Very rich and poor. And everybody relying on the government. And everybody else who used to have a job, well, you don't have one anymore. All right? That's the way Venezuela operates now. And it's a damn shame. It really is a damn shame. But again, the culprits in all of this are always at the core, the media, because they're the ones who are supposedly giving you the message.
Certainly, you cannot just take at face value what's offered in today's society by mass media. And I think personally that the answer, rather than turning away, is in the area of formation. How do we teach people to become critical thinkers? How do we teach people to understand that not everything you hear or everything you read should be taken at face value? And how do we come to give people the formation that they need to read something or to hear something and to be able to discern, if you will, to understand that underlying the message that's being communicated is a very different message or a very subtle message that has severe consequences for the future of society.
What's happened since then is you now have 6 companies, 6 large multinationals that control every radio station in America and all of the television stations in America and 80% of the newspapers. The television news departments have become corporate profit centers. They no longer have an obligation to benefit the American public. So their only obligation is to their shareholders. How do they satisfy that obligation? By expanding viewership so they can sell more ad space. How do you expand viewership? Why, you do that by appealing to the prurient interest that all of us have in the reptilian core of our brain for sex and celebrity gossip. So they give us Lacey Peterson, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jackson, and lots of terror alerts, because that gets viewership as well. But they're not telling us the real news that is affecting people in this country. The fact that today, 1 out of every 6 American women now has so much mercury in her womb that her children are at risk for a grim inventory of diseases: autism, blindness, mental retardation, heart, liver, kidney disease.
So, I mean, to me, and I'm glad you put those two of those clips together. On the one hand, you can't talk. Now, by the way, for those of you who don't know, that was Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who is now Pope Leo XIV. I'm sure that's from about 10 years ago. And obviously RFK Jr. from about 30 years ago. Now, here's the thing. Let's start with Pope Leo XIV, okay? And this really ties into education, which is what I was getting from what he was saying. You have to be able to call BS. To put it in layman's terms, to put it in Jersey terms, critical thinking is just calling BS, okay? Understanding the information that's coming to you and being able to break it down and coming to the truth of what you're receiving, okay? That's what Pope Leo XIV is talking about there. And quite frankly, Joe, that the only way that you do what he's saying is you have to, I'm not saying you got to go to college. And I've said this before. I don't know if I'm going to send my son to college, okay? I don't know if I want to, and that's something that I'm going to have to do a lot of praying on, me and my wife, okay? Because I don't see the net benefit of it, okay? Because of what he's saying. They're not teaching kids how to be critical thinkers. I got a better education in high school. I learned how to be a critical thinker in high school, not necessarily in college. My larger point is that you have to be a critical thinker, number one. Then you could come to the conclusions that RFK Jr. was coming to and supply the facts behind that when he calls them profit centers, because that's what they are, so that we can understand, and this is what really has the media in a tizzy, and I'll throw it over to you, that this is the reason why you have no credibility. The first reason is because I know how to think and use my God-given intellect and reason to understand that what you're telling me is a lot of crap. And the motive behind that, I also could discern, because you're making a lot of money from corporate sponsors. You're not doing what you're doing in the interest of providing me the information that I need, which you say is your mission to do. Where am I at, Joe? Where am I wrong?
I'll be truthful with you. I mean, you're right. We've seen universities, frankly, that are churning out kids that can't critically think and frankly have been brainwashed. They are brainwashed. Some of the best universities in this country, and I will say this with honesty, I would never send my kids to, ever, because I am not trying to build an investment banker when it comes to my kids. I want my kids to go to heaven. I want my kids to frankly have a productive, good Catholic life, build a family, and have a balanced life. And frankly, have their heads screwed on straight. Let's just cut to the chase. And these kids are not coming out of those schools with their heads screwed on straight. And you're paying $90,000 a year to have your kid brainwashed. That's what the Pope's talking about there before he was the Pope. Right. Are you able to discern, and that's the word he used, bull crap from truth? And a lot of that comes down to, where does your foundation lie? What ideologies have you bought into? And too many people, they say they're a-religious. Oh, no, you are religious. It's just not the religion of Jesus Christ or of Islam or of Judea, or like you're not Jewish either. You have an ideology, and it is your religion. The LGBTQ ideology is a religion. Yep. It is a religion. Wokeism is a religion. DEI worship is a religion. It has nothing to do with anything that has to do with God. It has everything to do with your religion, and you're shoving it down my kid's throat, and I'm going to pay $90,000 a year for that? Get lost. And as far as what RFK is talking about, he's spot on. It is not in the oligarch's interest for you to know what's going on. If you know, and you don't have to be a brain surgeon or a genius or a college graduate to basically see or just discern facts that are presented to you. And that's where social media comes in, where intelligent people, notice when RFK says things like that, he's a conspiracy theorist, he has something wrong with his brain, he's got this, that's the first thing they do, ridicule, discredit, because it's taking away from what? Their money. Their money. They don't care about you. They're going to tell you what basically works for them. Pump your head full of crap. It's like, frankly, the people in the inner city. Talk about people in New Jersey, in Newark. How many decades, how many promises have been pumped into their head? Where are they? They're still in the ghetto.
Right.
Still in the ghetto because they're not informed. And frankly, poor people are easy to control.
No, absolutely. Joe, we're all going to have to get on with the rest of our day, so we'll leave it there. I do want to play you a clip, though, from Chris Cuomo on the way out. I want to thank everybody. We want to thank everybody for being in the chat room tonight and joining us on Sunday, which is an odd time. So, Tiffany, I'm going to call you out on something. Tiffany said America needs to see this conversation. So what I'm going to suggest, if you guys don't mind, is if you're watching it on YouTube, but any of you who are on X, anybody who's got a page on X, pop over to X when this is over and repost it on X, wherever, if you can, all right? We don't want to impose on anybody, but however you can help us out to reach a wider audience, we really appreciate that. And we really appreciate you joining us here on Sunday. But remember, we normally go live Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. And we will this Thursday be going on Thursday, 9 o'clock Eastern time. So, of course, thanks once again, Joe. Great conversation, the important conversations. Played some good clips. We're trying to stay on top of this stuff for you. So make sure you check us out on social media across the board. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Democrats don't have high ground, okay? Some of the most profitable portfolios in Congress, some of the traders making the most money are Democrats. And near the top of that list, if not at it, is Nancy Pelosi. She made tens of millions of dollars during her time as Speaker in the stock market. And she's not done. A new report by Quiver Quantitative. Quiver Quantitative. Quiver Quantitative. Use it. See how they're trading. Copy their trades if you want to make money, okay? Quiver Quantitative tracks all members of Congress. She made nearly $5 million in one day of trading. 26 times her congressional salary one day. Now, what will Pelosi rightly say to me when I say this again? It wasn't me. It's my husband who made the trades. Okay. That's the case. Her husband did it, not her. Would that work for anybody else? Does that pass the smell test for you? You know who it worked for? Whoever wrote that BS federal ethics law. That's why they specifically barred immediate family members from making money on matters that their powerful relatives would have influence over. Then Congress gave themselves an out. It's disgusting. You want to complain about Trump? Fix the rules for yourself. Start there and include the president and the vice president. Fix it. Show that you can be better than the worst behaviors.